Hey everybody, Bobby Medina here with you, and I'm with my very dear friend out in Faro, Portugal, my good friend Mr. Hugo Alves. And Hugo is a wonderful trumpet player. Not only is he a great a trumpeter, but he leads a wonderful big band over there called the Orchestra Jazz de Algarve, and he's been a professor of trumpet and jazz studies at the Superior School of Music in Oporto, Portugal, as well. And Hugo's one of these guys that's he's a mover and a shaker. He's really brought jazz forward a long ways over there since I've met him, and we've known each other for quite a while. So welcome, Hugo.
Hello, Bobby. It's a pleasure to be here. And for start, let me thank you for doing this group. It's great to
Oh,
have us
cool.
all these wonderful players and people from all over the world together. It's really
Yeah,
cool, really nice.
it's been really fun.
Yeah,
So tell us a little bit, I mean, I kind of want to introduce you. I mean, for me, when I think of you, I think of you as being one of the big figures in jazz in Portugal currently. You've done a lot of different things, and I know you started with a band, and you started at one point, and it's grown to
yeah,
include all kinds of concert series and festivals and things all over the country. So tell us a little bit about how you started your big band and where it started,
yeah.
where it's at now.
Well, the story goes a little bit more behind, let's say, because I actually through the 90s was one of the most requested lead trumpet players in the country. So I mean, by the end of the 90s, I already had probably worked with all professional big bands in Portugal. Not that there were too many, but we are not a big country, as you know. We're a 10 million country. So, but yeah, at the time there were probably like three or four big bands, and I was the lead player basically almost on all of them.
Hmm.
Or I would rotate with a very good friend of mine from Brazil, which is not in the country anymore. And so anyway, my experience even started before that, long in the 80s. But yeah, and the experience was always good. It was one of the things I most liked doing. So, and I still do. So then one day, things change in your life, like having a kid, and
Yeah,
not wanting to be like every day on the road, and you have like three suitcases done with clothes to go and come back and forth.
yeah, I know
So
that
yeah,
feeling.
I decided to do other things like producing festivals and concerts while I was doing tours with other bands in Europe as well. But yeah, I decided to go into that. And one of the festivals I did for more time was the Lagos Jazz Festival, where you played as well,
Hmm.
which lasted for about 10 years. Well, in 2004, it was a festival that had this model of having these courses that people would do. Okay, so you had like workshops and things going on. We used to get up to 40, 50 students, uh, getting enough students and getting enough quality to teach them. I mean, back in 2001, there was only like a couple schools of jazz in the country, and the, I mean, the Superior School of Music where I was teaching until now opened the jazz degree in 2001. So these workshops were actually interesting and important to put new people on the scene. Not that they would learn in a week, of course not, but they would understand and they would then look for more help to keep doing it.
Right.
So it's from one of these years, 2004, that we actually had enough brass instruments among the students to build a student big band.
Uh-huh.
And this was a totally first experience then, and everybody in the city council loved it very much. And it was interesting because the workshop was like in August, and by September we were doing the first official rehearsal by the end of September, and well, till today. So that was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, and time flies, doesn't it?
Time flies. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you've worked really hard, and there's people that perform, there's people that work in the back, and you and me are a lot alike in many ways because we understand and we work both the back end, with with the business, working with the production, and
Yeah.
working as the musician and with the musicians. So it's pretty cool what you've accomplished over there, and I think you've brought jazz to a lot of people that would have never seen it. And as you said, Portugal is a smaller country, and it's getting caught up a little bit now with what's going on in the rest of the world. But when I first met you, it was pretty far back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, we have jazz in the country. In the country, it was pretty much very closed because we had a fascist regime till 1974. So American things, everything that was too much liberty wouldn't be like the real cool things to have around. But still, there were these guys in Lisbon that would get together because they had jobs. Some of them were actually flight attendants on TAP airliners, and they would fly to New York. So some of these guys brought records, and they had this club going on, which still goes today,
yeah.
and they started the club. But yeah, I mean, everything in what is jazz related in Portugal was a bit late here than the whole history of the
Right.
music
And
itself.
to think that all this started happening in 1974. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not that long ago when
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, I'm not saying it started. It did not start with me, of course. I mean, after the revolution, we have the first generations of jazz musicians in the country. But
no,
I,
that's
I
what I'm
would I
saying.
would say that only after the maybe 90s it gets more organized. Yeah,
No, yeah, but
organized.
what I'm meaning is like for a lot of our American friends here and people that might know from other parts of the world. I mean, Portugal had their revolution in 1974. It wasn't like back in the 1500s. Well, they had one back then
Yeah,
too, right? But that was a different one.
yeah,
So anyway, so like you're playing lead trumpet. You're one of the most sought after guys over there. You've done studio work. You've done all sorts of jazz
yeah,
gigs, from big concerts to small clubs, to private events and corporate events and things like that, just like a lot of us have done. So, what do you do to stay in shape, to keep your chops going? What kind of a routine do you have that kind of, does it change? Are you a person that likes to change your routine all the time, or do you have a set thing that you do? Let us know about that. What do you think?
yeah. Well, I have I had to all along my life. I started to play when I was 7, and the person who taught me to play trumpet was a saxophone player. Times were really different back then. I'm talking about some sort of 1980. We had a marching band in town. That's it. If you
Hmm.
want to learn a brass instrument, that's where you go. So you would eventually find a couple of sheets of some books that somebody copied, or and you would try to get more information. So I had to work on my own. I had help of a couple people that would not allow me to do very basic mistakes. But one of the things by luck I did do alone, I don't know why, is the way I blow the instrument, which I always found to make it in a very, let's say, more natural way. So I'm not a physical approach guy playing the trumpet. So I'm not flesh against steel. I just try to blow as easy as I can, and so all my playing is based on that. It's like if I was playing a whole a long tone all the time, and I
Hmm.
just articulate and do what I have to do.
Right.
But pressure of air, airspeed are concepts that really help me a lot, and especially because I don't get tired as much. Eventually, I can do more work with less time, and I mean, it has worked for me.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't think about it these days as much because it's what I do for 30 so much years.
Right. Well, I think it's really important, and I think one thing that a lot of people miss, and maybe particularly when they're younger, is that when
Yeah,
you're young, you just want to rush through everything, and you have a lot of time to practice. But as you get older, you have children, you have family life, you have
yeah,
business life, you have a lot of things eating at your time. So you have to learn to use your time more efficiently. And so for me, part of how I do things is I like to practice in when I can in different intervals throughout the day. Like right now, we're stuck in this pandemic, so I have the ability to practice in the morning, practice in the afternoon, and maybe practice at night. But
yeah,
sometimes when I don't, if I really focus and hone in on something, you know, 15, 20 minutes, you can get a lot done in a short amount of
yeah.
time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I have a set of things I do. I don't stay on them a long time. I keep rotating. So I'm not doing the same long tone exercises the same time on and on, or flexibilities or whatever, because I haven't understood in the past that if I keep doing that, you will become a little machine on that, and that will be eventually perfect. But it doesn't mean that you are actually getting it to all the other stuff you're playing.
Right.
So different kinds of flexibilities are interesting, as it is interesting. Sometimes I use Max Schlossberg book.
Hmm.
Sometimes I go to the Williams book, and I use a lot of Charles Collins as well.
Hmm.
Some other stuff I build myself. I mean, there was a time I played lots of stuff from the Alan Vizuri method. So,
Right,
I
right,
mean, I go as much as I can, and I try to vary because that will give me different situations. That's what I have when I play. I know I'm a jazz player. I mean, I have to improvise. I don't know what I'm playing,
right.
and I can't really practice what I don't know I'm gonna play next.
Yeah, well, you want to be prepared for everything and
Yeah,
well-rounded. And I agree, a lot of times, like, the other thing that happens with us is we get stuck physically in an area, and
yeah,
you get, it's just like kind of lifting weights. If you do like curls, at first they start working for you, but if that's all you do, the same reps, the same weight and everything, it stops working for you.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so you need to add
As
weight, you need to work other muscles around it. So
yeah,
it's the same doing different types of studies or different kinds of music.
yeah, I do agree on that. I mean, and I see sometimes people actually also use different equipment if they're practicing or if they're gonna play. I don't think that's always a good system. I mean, if it works for some, that's fine. But it reminds me an old story of mine. When I was a kid, I used to play roller hockey. It was big here.
Hmm.
And I remember we had the sticks,
Hmm.
and I remember we were a poor club, so we didn't have much money. So we had to train with old sticks. But when we went to go to play, they gave us like the real good sticks, and we couldn't play the damn thing because they were different,
Yeah.
and we always had that problem. So I mean, for me, it's like a question of having all the trumpets or the mouthpieces that I use, which are not a lot really, and they've been the same forever. And then just keep rounding on them and having the idea that, of course, some days are better than others. That's how it
No,
is. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, there's nothing.
psychologically, it's really for me. There are days I don't practice because I just can't. My mind is somewhere else. I know that if I'm gonna go, well, I've learned if I'm gonna go and play that day or do a certain type of exercises, I'll probably be hurting myself,
Oh yeah.
and
I mean, when
it's
I
not
have
gonna
gigs,
happen.
I generally don't practice that day. I know there's people that do, but
Yeah, no,
for
I
me,
don't. Yeah,
I
I don't.
don't. I might do a nice warm up early in
Yeah,
the morning, get everything going, and that's it. I get to the gig, I do
yeah,
a warm up, and then I'm ready to go. I want to be fresh and be able to have a tank
of
full of
course. Yeah,
gas.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Um,
Because after a certain period of time, uh, it doesn't matter how sometimes warm up is actually to start is also a mental attitude. But
exactly.
I mean, after you're playing 10 or 15 minutes, let's say 20 minutes, is there anything else to warm up really? Yeah, if we move from long tones to flexibilities, yeah, probably your lip is going to need to work a little bit harder. So you keep on going, but you're playing already, right? So
Yeah, no, absolutely. For me, like the warm up is really about getting the machine going, getting everything to flow, getting my chops to vibrate and be free.
exactly, yeah,
Once I get that, it's no, there's nothing else I got to do to warm up. After that, it's practice. It's working on.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
for me it works like, for me the best, the first really warm up is to relax in the sense of putting my mind away from the production and all the things we have to do, and getting into music sense, and then focus on to start playing a long note and focus on the air pressure, putting my, if my mind remembers the set, then my body will remember the set, and then you go from there on. But
right.
that's for me the most important thing.
But you must have what the rest of us have because we're all human, and it's just
Yeah,
it's just flesh against metal. So the
yeah,
problem is finding this balance, and one day you feel amazing, or you feel amazing for a period of time, and then the bottom starts to drop out, and then you have to do what I call damage control. Sometimes
yeah,
that's after the gig, sometimes it's after the gig and the next morning, and then you hit on something that you just said, because I think a lot of people, they're afraid to take a day or two off. And sometimes taking a day or two off is really good for you, both in your mind and
yeah,
physically, for the
yeah.
maybe the swelling of your chops and things like that.
Yeah, and you have to think about that. You have lots of blood circulating on your lips, and even playing with as little pressure as we can, we're always playing. We're always making some little pressures. I mean,
Oh
this
yeah.
pressure is always cutting flow there, so you need to reestablish that. And we've known cases of trumpet players, I mean, big names, and that have had problems
Oh yeah.
that start with something like that. So yeah, I mean, for me, resting even on my daily playing, if I do an exercise or something for every 10 minutes, I'll have to take at least the same half of that amount of time. I
Mhm.
stop, and that brings me a little bit back. So and that's the way I do. And
And
if you
sometimes
think
it's the opposite of that. If you're really feeling not good, play a little bit, maybe take twice as much time off. You play 30 seconds, rest a minute, play 30
yeah,
seconds, rest a minute or two,
yeah,
and then it starts to kind of come back together.
yeah. And if we think about it, um, I mean, the setup of the mouthpiece on your lips and the sound getting out is basically what you do when you're really playing. Because, I mean, we're not playing straight for 3 hours. We have, an intro to play, then you have like 6 bars, 8 bars, it doesn't matter. Then you
Right.
have a long solo, then you gotta, if you're playing lead, you gotta go up there something. You
Yeah.
have, but you're always refreshing the thing. I think that has to be in some way incorporated when we are practicing, because practicing for me is, I mean, it's like a race. You race on the same track, you're gonna really race. So
Right.
we got to learn the track, and that's the track we have.
Well, I have some friends that are really fine lead players, and one of the things that they do is they have a book of lead trumpet charts. I have some myself, and sometimes my routine will be my warm up, and then I'll do a set, like 40 minutes to 50 minutes, just like you would do a set, and put a metronome on and count all the rests and everything, and just go through it, just like a
Yeah,
real gig. I I uh, I have a good friend of mine. I don't know if you know him. Sal Cracchiolo is his name. He plays lead right now with Tower of Power, and he's played with Poncho Sanchez, all kind of people. Great, great lead player. And I was
yeah.
asking him a while back. He called me, and we were having a chat. And I said, "How do you practice and get ready for the Tower gig?" Because he tells me, "Man, it's so demanding." So I said, "What kind of a routine do you do?" And he says, "We have a recording of all the songs on our show without the horns or without my part in it or whatever." So he says, "I warm up, and then he says, I do that routine. That's my routine. I play all of our repertoire
Yeah,
because they also have to have all their stuff memorized. And then he
of
says,
course.
I take a break and I do the next set, just like we were going to do a thing, because we do two
Yeah,
sets a night." And he
yeah.
said, that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah, I totally believe on that. I mean, we most of what I play these days is around the big band the repertoire. So they can be older or newer swing, if you want to call it. They can be Latin jazz, funk, or whatever. But I mean, yes, you have to keep doing it. You can't stop. We don't have gigs, of course, every week. We have to prepare. We have lots of things in the middle. So yeah, I do that as well. Sometimes I pick up some of my lead parts, and I'll do them just as a practice, which will be more demanding that day. So I'm not going to improvise probably that day before or after, and
Right.
I'll run for a few things,
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, but one of the things that for me is interesting and important to do is when I actually do some work for leads, which I don't do that much really, but yeah, for me, some staccatos on some places are really important because not all the notes really come out the horn the same way up there. So I have some tricky ones, and all my horns have taught me that the worst way that I got to do something about it. And yeah, then I'll do that.
So do
I mean,
you, just so everybody knows, do you have a different mouthpiece or mouthpiece and horn combination that you're playing when you're playing lead as opposed to when you're playing jazz? Like what kind of setups are you using these days?
well, I was having troubles in the 90s picking up horns. Market here is not like in the US, as you know. Now it's much better. I mean, with all these online stores in Europe.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember in 2001, I had to go to Paris specifically to pick up horns. I mean, for an American, doing a 3-hour flight probably is nothing, but for us, it's going to the other side of the world because we all have rather small countries here and with different languages. But yeah, at that time, I went there and I picked up a horn that I still use, and I use it for quite some time, which is a Schilke S42L.
Right.
At the time, it wasn't yet John Faddy's model. It was just the model coming out, and it was a really nice balanced horn. So
Hmm.
I always liked medium bore horns because again, I use, for me, pressure and speed of air are important concepts of playing, and a smaller horn gives me better control on that.
Hmm.
But I mean, all my life, I basically used the same mouthpiece, which was a 3C. Doesn't matter what brand. It was always that size. It's
Hmm.
still what I use today. Today, I'm a Dennis Wick artist, as you know, so I still I use their 3C on the American Classic Series,
Hmm.
which suits me fine. It's very close, maybe to an old Mount Vernon, if we want.
Right.
And then, yeah, I used to do all my playing. It doesn't matter if they were lead or not with the same mouthpiece. Why? Well, because if I play lead, I use a lot more air. And that changes completely the way the mouthpiece also works. So I could actually have a different tone playing that. I mean, when we met, I could remember you when, but like 15 years ago, I was doing that.
Right.
And
No,
when I
that's
had solo
cool.
work, I mean, I was using less air, and my sound is it gets more round, and
Yeah,
it's
we can change the sound with the concept in our head that translates
yeah,
to just little minute changes in our mouth.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
keeping your teeth.
So what happened at some point, not too long ago, maybe I don't know, 4 or 5 years, maybe. I always had this spare mouthpiece for leads that it was always on the case, but I barely ever touched it. I remember when I was playing on TV sessions in the beginning of the 2000 years, I used it a few times because man, we were like 16 hours on the studio playing these wonderful licks that were pentatonic to high notes as F or G's.
Hmm.
So, I mean, after playing 40 times, 50 times the damn thing, I mean, you needed to have something to, at least not to be so demanding on the playing.
Yeah.
So I used it then. I've kept it and I use it now for playing lead most of the time because yeah, it cuts more the sound and it
Yeah.
works fine. And
Right.
I can change basically. I mean, it's like a 3C. It's just shallower.
Right.
That's it. I have the same. That's what I use, and I use a flugelhorn mouthpiece, which is again the same, just
Right.
a flugel cup, right?
Right. And
So, but
you're playing what
like,
I play on the flugel, right? You got a queen on. I'm not a queen on a canstool, which
yeah,
unfortunately canstool's not around anymore. But it's a great
yeah,
flugelhorn. That custom series with the big copper
yeah,
ball. It's a really a nice horn.
yeah.
And
He's
how
just
about
there looking to us.
do you switch other horns and stuff now when you're playing jazz, or do you still kind of stay with the?
Yeah, well, basically, I was using my flugelhorn is the Canstel 1525. I
Mhm.
think it's 1525, right? The model.
I believe so.
My trumpet is a late. This trumpet, I mean, I can use it for everything, but it's the one I more specifically use on big band because I really like the sound. And
Right.
it's a Con 8B Artist,
Right.
lightweight.
Hmm.
So I have a silver version. It's mine is from 75, so it's a bad ear, but it sounds great. I
Hmm.
had a great ear of 63 from Hellcart, and it wouldn't be close to this one. So these are really hard finds these days. There weren't many done. So it's almost like a constellation, but it's not. There's a few
Right.
parts missing, and I mean something else is different on the metal as well for sure. And then, so this is the horn I use more for big band, or sometimes if I have a more harsh material to play on a funk band or even a hard bop band, this will
Mhm.
give me a better, a more suited sound. Besides that, if I play in duo, trio, quartet, the trumpet I use mostly is the Martin Committee, which you know very well,
Right.
and it's a beautiful sound. It's a completely different horn. I mean, this one is from '59. I mean, there's always issues about tuning and other things,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it doesn't for me. It doesn't really matter against all the good things he gives me back. So
Hmm.
and
We have to learn how to play the idiosyncrasy of each horn
yeah,
mouthpiece combination there is. I mean, that's the
yeah.
thing. There's no
I'm lucky I
one
can use
setup.
all the same mouthpieces on all horns, you know. So the Shilky right now, it's like my spare horn. I do have other horns around. I have an older con too, which was my number one, still plays.
Hmm.
My son plays it once in a while too. But that's it, and that's what I use. So I'm pretty much happy. I've been having this setup. I mean, the con is with me for maybe uh, I would say it's some 12, 13 years at least.
Hmm. I had a good
And
friend in who's no longer playing, unfortunately, but he was an amazing trumpet player named Jarmo Hogendijk from Holland, and he played one of those for years. And I mean, that's all he had, and he just sounded great on that instrument. You know, I
yeah,
think,
you mean on a con? You mean?
yeah, I think
Yeah,
Tom Harrell plays the
yeah.
con.
Tom plays on a constellation. Well, this one it's called 8B because it's a departure from the 38B. Okay, so
Okay,
it's the 38 without the three.
right.
Lighter. Yeah, that's what Tom played. Actually, he was our guest some 3 years ago,
Yeah, I remember that.
and it was funny because we were talking about that too. We had basically the same horn, and yeah, it's great. I mean, I like the sound of it. There's a certain chord to these horns that is different, you know. And
Right.
in terms of what comes to a big band for me, and especially if you're playing like older swing, it does make a lot of sense, you know.
Yeah. Well, listen, I wanna take a quick left turn here because we're almost out of time. But you have a number of great CDs, both with your big band and both with and also with small groups that are
Yeah.
really interesting. A lot of stuff with some original music, stuff that has music that everybody's going to know. And they're really well done. And you have an accordion, an album that you did with an accordionist over there
Yes.
that
Yes.
that I got from you not long ago called Metamorphosis, which is just, I mean, it's. I know you were saying this was like a rehearsal, and we recorded the rehearsal, but it
Yeah.
is beautiful, man. I have that thing in my car and I listen to
Well,
it
thank you.
all the time. I mean, I real, and I'm kind of, I play accordion a little bit, and I just that sound and the way you guys are playing, it's a whole other
Yeah, well,
never
that's
heard.
yeah. I mean, I gave the idea to my very good friend João Frade, and for me, he's like the best killing person I know playing that instrument. You know,
Yeah,
there's a big tradition here in the south of Portugal of accordion,
right.
with the buttons accordion. So, and yeah, they have contests and they have all these things they do about it. You know, but João is really an amazing person. I mean, he plays with all the best musicians in the country and in other countries as well. But yeah, I had the idea. I said, man, we live close. We got to do something, and so we started doing that. And basically, when we were trying the tunes, we were here always in my little studio. And okay, let's record this and see how it sounds. So sometimes he would bring a different accordion, and I would use a different trumpet to see where we could match to it.
Hmm.
And so this we found his accordion great to match with the Martin trumpet, and that's what you hear there. But basically, I mean, we've never cut it like really songs. We just kept on recording and using good ideas, you know,
Hmm.
and whatever we thought it was good.
Well,
And
I
I can
know
tell
it's
you, there's no editing there too.
no, and I know it's on top of it all, it's received some really nice write-ups about it and stuff. So that is amazing. And
Yeah.
so like people like I know you have Hugo Alves music.et, but if people want to also contact you, they can contact you here through our group. You're part of it on
Yeah.
Facebook, and they can. I suggest highly you look and get some of his music. It's really fun, really cool stuff. And, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. You've been
Well, thank you, Bobby.
one of my closest friends over there, and you have, I mean, how next to here, I mean, there's no other place I'd rather live than Portugal. I love your
Yeah.
country, man. I mean, I love the people, I love the food, I love everything about it. And so I look
Well,
forward to
thank you.
the next
Yeah,
time we
of
get
course, of
together
course.
in person. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. And
No, no problem, Bobby. It's a pleasure actually. And again, thank you for the invitation and thank you for the wonderful idea because I mean of all these social networks we see around and so many people talking and giving opinions that don't really care. I mean, your group is like a really flash of light, and it's really interesting. And I do hope also that young players can read and see what's going on there because
yeah,
they
I
probably
mean,
would learn something, you know.
I know it's for a certain age group. It was the original concept, but we have a lot of younger people kind of sneaking in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
like
it's
it.
fine.
As long as everybody is like, respectful and involved in it in a positive way, that's what it's for. So,
Yeah,
well, listen,
I gotta be sorry not to be very active on it because I see it every day. But the problem right now is we are on these like massive rescheduling gigs because of
I
the
know
virus situation.
we're
And
all
you know,
going
I had a
through it.
postponed big festival. We have, I mean, it's just crazy. So I have to be like with my mind on 50 places at the
Yeah.
same time.
Well, I
But
know you're a
I'll
busy
be
guy,
checking in.
so thanks again for being part of this,
Thank you,
and
man.
we'll look forward to the next time. Okay.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, bye bye.
Thanks.